It is Tuesday, rawmike.richards.com. Coming at you, as they like to say, Dave. Coming at you.
Coming straight at you.
Yeah. Broadcasting live from the DKI studios in downtown Toronto. 234 King Street East out of the Pacific Junction Hotel. Great to be back today. We missed yesterday. We'll get to some of the reasons why, and I appreciate all the comments on Twitter. But we are going to be packed today, busy. The Leafs look pretty good, especially Mitch Marner, or as he goes by, Roast Beef Jr. Yeah, he was looking good. But just how good are they? I mean, everyone realizes how many games have been played in the NHL, right? I mean, I saw, I believe it was on the weekend, the Toronto Sun. Matthews deserves a parade. I'm not making that up. I'm not making that up. How old is he?
14.
I was going to say he's 13 years old. He's played it not 2 full years in the NHL.
Nope.
And he deserves a parade. Wow, that takes balls.
I'd like to see that parade.
Yeah.
When would it be like balloons and clowns,
Well,
face paintings.
It's got to be over by a certain time, too, I would think.
Jumping castles. I went to one of those on Saturday with my 4-year-old. Loved it. Maybe it is time for a parade.
Deserves a parade. Take it easy.
Our parade's kind of overrated these days. You don't hear of too many parades.
I'll be honest, I'm not big on parades. The parade I had chosen years ago for a victory included Jillies, and because that's no longer going to happen.
Yeah, it's...
Because Dave's fancy inner-city people have taken it over and made it into a boutique restaurant.
Yeah. Oh, it's terrible.
Who knows? A parade. But trust me, if that ever happens in this city of Toronto, a Stanley Cup parade, I, in my own mind, can't imagine the insanity. You know, you go back to 1967. Most people thinking in their lifetime they'll never see it again. And I'll be honest, I'd never attend any championship parade. Even my most favorite team or a team that had won me a lot of money on a specific bet, I would be somewhere spending that money. I'm probably not attending. That's why I'm not a great fan. I don't boo. I don't make a lot of noise, really. I really don't. Football would be my loudest sport, I would say, in terms of me saying stuff. But I'm a freak because I think I'm part of the coaching staff. So that's where the noise comes from. You know, guys who scream out draw or ball, you know, because it's fumbled or certain things, you know, it's annoying. So I try not to make any noise. In fact, that's why I stay home.
Well, you're a little different because I've never seen a fan actually wear a headset while
Yeah.
he's watching the game. So
Yeah.
it's like, and it's not even plugged into anything. The cord is in his pocket.
It was like,
what is he doing?
It's not plugged in. What's that, Dave? Are you calling punt? Do you want to punt? No, I don't think anyone's calling punt. And by the way, it's first down, so there's.
But it is entertaining.
Yeah.
and it's unique. It's one of a kind, and I think it's a keeper.
We'll talk some NFL football. Obviously, last night's game. We're talking about Thursday night football and Monday night football actually having some pretty good games.
Maybe the two of the better games of the week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, some of those other ones. Oh, my God, please.
Woof.
Tennessee and Cleveland, which, by the way, Dave, I believe 100% won that bet.
Yeah, Cleveland and the points.
Because
what a dog's breakfast for the game.
That's
though.
disgusting.
Field goals. That's all there was.
How can you even – and look, a lot of those games are exciting for the wrong reasons, and then some of them are just – it's just really hard to watch the football because it's not that exciting. It's to the middle ground. It's not parity. We'll talk to Clarke Judge. What was it? Voice? What are they calling it? The
Talk of Fame Network. Yes.
Talk of Fame Network. He does such an excellent job. If you're watching or listening for the first time, hang on for this one because he has such great detail and just an awesome perspective on the game itself. And I'm sure he'll have some comments about the Yankees as I see that Hank Steinbrenner little lukewarm on the re-signing of Joe Girardi and even Cashman. So the team of Cashman Girardi, maybe he's not that big on them. Boy, that takes balls.
That is, considering what he did.
That takes balls. And here's the other thing, though, also to consider, and this is one thing I think you have to take a look at. Does Girardi want to come back? Because he could probably go many places for some pretty big coin, Dave.
He could write his own ticket.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. It's almost like the scenario we saw about 2-3 years ago with Don Mattingly, where it's like, okay, Dodgers, you're not a big fan of me. I'll sit here and wait.
Exactly.
And all of a sudden, Miami steps up, offers him basically the franchise to come over, and he waits. Joe Torre could have done the same thing when he was a member of the Yankees. He could have wrote his own ticket if he decided that was, he was on for a next step. Joe Girardi will be managing somewhere in the major leagues if he chooses.
Also, before we get to some of the highlights, we'll also go over something very special. And one of those things, actually, today, as we mentioned, is a fancy Greek birthdays.
It is.
Yeah.
Are you playing the Greek happy birthday
Yes,
right now?
it is. Which sounds like a lot of other.
No, it's
Greek
good.
songs.
It's good.
So it's. I tried to look at how you say happy birthday, and that is just literally impossible.
Yep.
Like how you could have the letters H, R, and O together. I don't even know what sound that makes. Haromonienia. It looks like genitalia. I'm pretty sure that's not.
Well, why
correct.
don't you say happy birthday if you were talking to an older Greek guy on the Danforth and he was trying to say happy birthday in English but with a Greek accent?
Happy birthday.
See, yeah, exactly.
I think it's something like that. And so Dave's daughter, Marissa, made a beautiful card for Irene.
Irene just wrote Chronia Pala. Chronia Pala.
Chronia Pala. Chronia Pala.
That's good too. Yes, and my beautiful wife, happy birthday, and her sister that you may know of.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, Dave, because not only did Marissa make a card, but I made a card. I don't know if you can see it on camera.
That's fantastic.
If you would like to read it, Dave, what it says.
Okay, it says, someone loves you.
Yeah, and if you can see right there,
That's great.
Some pretty good drawing. And
Yeah.
then you open up the card there. And,
Okay.
It says,
To Vicky,
yeah,
I love you.
yeah.
There's a lot of X's
Yeah.
and a lot of O's and 3 hearts, which is fantastic. And I have to give you credit, or
Yeah.
whoever this person was. I don't know yet because we're getting to it.
It's an emotional card.
It is an emotional card, and it has a lot of variety in color.
Yeah.
A lot. You don't get this when you go to the Hallmark and pick up a card for $20.
And then as you can see in the bottom corner, do you see that?
There's an arrow.
An arrow.
Turn over.
And you turn over.
Oh.
And
Oh, my goodness.
and yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see those pictures.
Someone's getting some lipstick on his face.
Yeah.
And I think I know who that might. Oh,
yeah. And
somebody is rolling around.
Yeah. So that's once again, there you go.
That's tremendous. That's good.
Chronia Pala.
You worked on that all weekend.
Yeah, that was.
That's
Now back to the sports.
I'll be sure she gets that.
Yeah.
I'm sure she knows who it's from just by the
I'm sure,
drawing.
just like the other day, the police will be at my door very shortly. Ask me to please. Okay, now,
Tell him to pack a lunch because it's going to take a while to get you.
Yeah, it's going to get a while. You think you can get me?
No way.
No one's getting me. By the way, thanks for the on Twitter yesterday. We didn't have the show as I am still dealing with, and just so you know, it was very public when I said that, diagnosed with rectal cancer a couple of years ago. The doctors at, and specifically Shadi Ashamala, they take the tumor out. I've been cancer-free now for, a year? It's over a year? Or 2 years?
Over a year,
Is it 2 years? Yeah,
it's
2
been
years.
very good.
It's 2 years. And so now I'm dealing with plumbing. So hopefully they just connect all the stuff together and you get your life back to normal, which I'll be honest, the reason I'm not that over the top or greedy about it is there were so many that wish they had this problem. They didn't get this far. So I don't really talk about it that much, but I know that, in keeping the listeners and those viewers and those that have started following both Dave and myself on ronmikeRichards.com, I'm going to tell you where this is at. So now they're trying to figure out a way to get this together. And yesterday, while they did their procedure, which is basically skewering me like one of those Greek animals that they put over the spit and turn it over and over like a goat or pig. That's what they did to me yesterday, but it looked like, according to the technician, because now we have to go back to the doctors,
Yes.
that they can see a way where they could get a stent in the place that's really tight, open it up, and once it opens up, they can connect it like plumbing, like two pipes going together.
Fantastic.
And I would get the...
Not copper, though.
Not copper.
Okay.
Well, I gotta be honest, I take wood at this point. And because I still have what they call an ostomy bag, so it's just sort of in the front part of myself, and
Yep.
It's that's difficult, but maybe I'll get a chance where that will come off. So for all those and
there was a lot of it too. That was really nice to see.
Yeah.
You sent out that message, and all of a sudden floods, and that's just telling you the popularity of you, the show, everything about it. You're following, and I'm really happy that things are going well, or it seems to be at least. Headed in the right direction, because as you know, this has been a damn long process.
Yeah, it's been certainly longer than I thought, and this is the best news. I would say this is the best news I've had in a couple of years. Yeah, I would say.
No, that's very good.
Yeah, so we got our fingers crossed.
Exactly, and hopefully it happens sooner than later.
Let's take a look at the Toronto Maple Leafs parade or no parade. Last night was a pretty strong effort by the Maple Leafs, including Mitch Marner, who, a lot was made of him, Dave being sent down to the fourth line. But sometimes, look, in coaching, in what ails a team, or in those coachable areas, I'm not going to say coachable moments, but they're kind of that way. I've said the same thing about football. Sometimes the press box is in a bad place to be. Mm-hmm. If you feel that it's going to benefit that player to see actually what they're doing, especially the young ones, the young kids in those given sports that move so quickly and plays at such a different level from what they've come from. Let's not confuse even the highest level of junior hockey, Dave, to what's played in the NHL. So if this is a move to get things going, this isn't necessarily the demotion I think sometimes people make it to be in all sports. They're like, oh, he's been sent to the press box, or oh, he's going down the fourth line, or he's being sent down. Which sometimes I think, depending on the organization, it's not so much sent down. It's being sort of reassigned for maybe something that the coaching staff thinks that you need. The AHL, by the way, is the second best league in the world. I hear people talk about other leagues and how great it is. The AHL is the second best league in the world. So if you've got to work something out, now that Toronto is sitting literally across from its farm, if you want to call it the farm, in Toronto, being reassigned isn't necessarily a bad thing, depending on some of those issues. And I think for Marner to go down, well, you can start making the arguments now, but between him and Martin last night, I think that's a success.
Yeah, a couple points for Mitch Marner. Looked well. Looked like he was really moving out there. Even the goal they disallowed, which was kind of funny because you look at it, they disallow a goal that Jonathan Quick was clearly back into position, or at least it seemed like he was back into position. It's very debatable. I guess, they probably should have whistled it down a little bit earlier than that. Marner was kind of cycling in that offensive zone. And you know what? Not a surprise to me. I look at this going, you know what? It was only a matter of time until a guy like this breaks through, because if this hockey club is going to win anything, or it's going to advance or continue to grow, the big three up front, Marner, Matthews, Nylander, are going to produce and going to be cornerstones of this franchise for years to come, if not the next decade. A slight hiccup was maybe an overreaction. When you see a coach move a player of that caliber to a fourth line, you start to raise eyebrows. I think it was kind of unnecessary. I quite frankly don't know why Mike Babcock had to do that. But he works the way he wants to work, but and that's just kind of how it works.
So are you saying that you want to ask questions of the head coach? Is that what you're saying?
Well, first question I'd ask him, and you know what? Let's bring him in right now here on Raw Mike Richards. Coach, are you impressed, or at least not surprised like I am, that Mitch Marner was actually playing like Mitch Marner of the past and actually producing and kind of bumped himself out a little bit of a mini slump?
Well, I got to tell you, Dave, it's not a big surprise. There's a reason we sent him down to the fourth line, and I thought that Marnie done a good job last night, and he was on her. He got it going, and the reality, Davey, is that if you can't get it going in the NHL, you lose your job, right? You lose your job, and no one's going to cry, because the next guy coming up is going to give her, and he's going to get it going. And next thing you know, you're crying into a cup of rye and watching Red Tube and eating cheesies. You know?
And that rye is definitely a triple. Frederick Anderson, stellar game, still lets in the bad goal, though it seems to be a habit developing that this guy lets in a bad goal per game.
We've got some problems. We've got some problems with Freddie because he's not that good. And, you take a look at the group as a whole, and you've got McElhenney, who's shit, and Sparksy, he's brutal. You know, one time I called the CNIB to see if he get him a test to see if he's blind. I think we made a huge mistake, Davey, in that Bibo, Antoine Bibo was he could play some goal, and now he's gone, and I think that was a mistake. I also like seeing Bibo.
Yeah,
Bibo. Hey, Bibo.
It's a catchy name, isn't it? Speaking of mistakes, Eric Fair placed on waivers. Are you surprised that your team decided to do that?
I'm surprised to hear the name because I don't know who he is. right. I know we've got a lot of good players, and other teams got good players, and they're going to get it done, but I don't know who that is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on the start, 7-2. You got to be happy through the first 9 games, and best of luck in the next one.
Well, also happy birthday to your beautiful wife there, Irene, and she's a beautiful girl, and her sister Vicky. Wouldn't mind getting a shot at that too.
Thanks, Coach. Mike Babcock on Ron Mike Richards.
He's very honest.
Almost every single Leaf game. I think it heard exclusively here on the program. So
I can't say that. Good thing you bring up the parade because I don't think they're ready for that. But I will say this because this the one common thing I get, having been in the Toronto area my whole life, having my uncle as the trainer for like 100 years, and all the years of misery that you've seen in Toronto, it's the first question is, are they the real deal? Well, in the progression that we've seen since they shaved it down to the wood, the trend that they have and the moves that they have made, everything to me, Dave, has made sense. Like there's nothing I would pick apart. If you're picking apart what the Leafs have done, I don't know if you've seen an organization that was that mired in bad decisions, bad management, coaches who either were ill-matched or put into a really bad place. Maybe the talent wasn't that great. And for the most part, the talent in Toronto, aside from maybe looking at some of those teams in the 90s, you had a lot of guys in the twilight of their career. They may have had a name, but that name was good probably 5 or 7 years beforehand. This is so far away from those kinds of moves from that organization that was sad. There was a pathetic sort of stigma. There was a stink to the Maple Leafs. I don't see that. They can go as far as they want, and even all joking aside, to me it's still a couple of things. The number one, I need a goaltender that is quote-unquote all-world, that starts to win games that his team doesn't deserve to win. When you find me that guy, then I'm seeing a trophy probably at some point going over their heads. But it's not just the goaltending, Dave. But that's one. I'm still saying that Freddie Anderson's one of those top, maybe even 12. Are you I'm still not. But if you don't have a top 5 guy, then you're looking at a goalie that, well, you can't put him in Crawford's category because he's won. He's won a trophy. And the team he played on was ridiculous, stellar. The coach is amazing. So, again, trying to make comparisons to other team, I never think that works. But the one comparison I would say is that in the current thinking and philosophy that you see in NHL teams, you probably are going to need the all-world guy. I just don't think Freddie's that guy.
Yeah. You know what? Tomorrow I'll break down a top 15. Top 15 goaltenders.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
We'll put it out, and we'll have a debate about it, and Rusty might get a little upset.
Yeah, Rusty, what do you think? I mean, look, we kid around, but look, he's a diehard Leaf fan, but he's also a hockey guy who watches. There goes some. Oh, baby. We don't have luck with spilt drinks in this studio. But if you're looking at as a hockey guy, and it's tough to separate it being a Leaf fan, are you thinking that Frederick Anderson is the goalie that could get you a Stanley Cup with this team?
I think he is just good enough, and I look at the 20.
Okay, I take it all back. All that nice shit I said, all the sensitive, and now it's gone.
You still need to improve the overall defensive structure.
Ray Charles, ladies and gentlemen.
If Antti Niemi can win a Stanley Cup with a good team in front of him, all Frederick Anderson needs is a little bit better defense. And I think Niemi,
And he's my best friend.
Oh, okay. He's not your best friend. Oh, there goes the elastic. Now the substitute teacher is now crying. She's leaving the room.
He's just excited that his uncle Roman Polak played his first game yesterday.
You know what? Do we like this story? Do we like this story? Are the Leafs? Do the Leafs come out looking like good guys for doing this, or do they look like?
It reeks of desperation.
You think so?
Actually.
Okay.
I think it does. Yeah.
Rusty? Desperate or good?
Let me guess. He's a Norris Trophy candidate.
No, desperate or good?
It was an attempt to do something with this defense that hasn't done much this season. Just to try and
That's
change
almost
something.
Fair. That is almost fair.
It's just to change something up, I think.
It's you know what it is. It's management saying to themselves, "We're disappointed in the two young Swedish defensemen. We're disappointed in Connor Carrick, and we need some sort of supporting cast to kind of band-aid our way through that." Fifth and sixth defenseman.
Is there one defenseman that they have let get away? And it's hard to say let get away with that team. But is there one that left that they should have kept, or is that really not a conversation? Because I don't know if it's a conversation.
Anton Stralman.
What? Actually, that's
okay.
But you know what? The Strowman that was here is much different than the Strowman that we see today.
But that's because he played about 20 games with them before they shipped him off.
Yeah. So it's that would have been one of them. Yeah, I could see this team making a serious play at a Mike Green or somebody of that nature, and Detroit will be a willing partner to part with a guy like that. I'm not saying Mike Green's going to come in there and solidify your defensive structure, but Mike Green will give you a guy that's going to play offensive minutes, power play minutes, and help a defense that doesn't have that guy. I know a lot of people will sit there and go, we need shutdown. Well, if Green is elevated into the 1-2, everybody drops down a stage, and maybe a Ron Hainsey will fill a different role on this team, because he's actually been somewhat of a surprise that he hasn't been lousy. Because I think he's an average defenseman at best right now, maybe even below average, but he's actually been exceeding those weak expectations that I have on him. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Speaking of players that you'd like to have or could have had or you did have and let go, LaMarcus Aldridge, interestingly enough, was one that the Raptors from time to time, that name would come up, and I'm like, oh, God, if you could get him.
Yep.
Well, someone got him, and it wasn't the Raptors. It was the Spurs, and last night it really showed why they would have liked a LaMarcus Aldridge. Easier said than done. I also thought it was weird that Kyle Lowry was talking about the Spurs last night. Oh, like, yeah, geez, I'd like to be a part of that team.
Yeah.
No, you're it's like almost getting a girl and then marrying one and then looking across the table and going, geez, I wouldn't mind being with that.
Yeah, that would have been okay.
Yeah, that would have been something else.
Come on, Kyle. There's microphones in front of you.
Yeah, that was a little odd. The game close the whole time until it gets down to literally the last 3-4 minutes, give or take, of the fourth quarter, where the Raps were in it. But then San Antonio does what San Antonio does. A big part of that was LaMarcus Aldridge. And good for it. You're going to see that in this too. Ibaka being a little physical with Aldridge and sticking up for one of his players. In this case, it was Kyle Lowry. So once again, courtesy and property of the National Basketball Association, and I believe this is this TNT? It is Fox, but once again, property of the National Basketball Association. Here's the last minutes of the fourth quarter. Very damaging for your Toronto Raptors.
Along with a couple of boards and 4 assists. Aldridge kicks it off. Brandon Paul. Right back to L.A. Got it in over the 7-footer. 4 of 19 from threes tonight. Green.
And boom goes the dynamite.
Here is Kyle Anderson. Got it for 2. Yeah, you can see why. Green here. Lowry trying to wrestle with him. Danny inside.
Really physical. And then, oh my goodness, it is Ibaka.
On the team, Pop talks about it all the time.
Actually, they didn't carry down on this particular highlight, but it got a little nasty there for a while. It looked a little hockeyish. I didn't mind it.
Yeah, when you have a guy like Serge Ibaka, get used to this too, because I don't think he's going to let anybody push around this Raptor team. He might be the enforcers when it comes to that kind of thing. One thing I forgot, when watching this game, I forgot Rudy Gay was a member of the Spurs. So I just like to take this opportunity to wish the Spurs a first-round elimination from the playoffs because you can't win ball games when Rudy Gay is wearing one of your jerseys. Disappointing. I know he's only a bench player for them, but you're not going to win anything with Rudy Gay. So it's kind of too bad because the Spurs have built up a pretty good winning reputation, and it all comes to an end here in 2017.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was known as sarcasm. So for the radio and television students watching today, write that down. Sarcasm.
Starts with an S.
Yeah.
S.
And other letters too. It's very
Yeah,
it's not the easiest word to spell.
No, it isn't.
But looking at hey, this season for the Raptors, it's just going to be like street fights every single night. They're going to have to work their way through to be a top. They're still in the top 5 to me. They're probably still a top 5 team.
Overall,
in the East.
Yeah, I'd say top 4. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I would put that in that conversation.
Depending on the scramble right now that's going on with Boston, which of course after Hayward goes down there, and I think it's just, I'll be honest, emotionally when you play with a guy and you see his foot turned sideways, there are guys that they throw up, they can't stop seeing it. Obviously people say, well, they'll get over it. Yeah, you get over it, Dave, but there is a psychological thing that happens, and for the next couple of games, you saw it. They weren't quite together.
Nope.
They will get it together, but that's a big piece of the puzzle they lost that night.
That's a massive piece. They went out and kind of restructured their team, not only with the Irving trade, but this free agent signing, and now you've taken them out of the lineup for the entire year after the first couple minutes of game number 1. It's a horrific injury to the player, horrific blow to the team. I think it almost, I'm not going to say solidifies them, but it kind of moves them out of the conversation as they could be the first team in the Eastern Conference, because clearly they are not the first place team in the conference, and I don't think it's going to be that kind of competition. It's LeBron and everybody else once again.
Yeah. Not surprisingly. We'll get to some more actually basketball highlights as we go on the other side, because Clarke Judge, we're going to call him.
Okay.
Clarke, who does such an awesome job. And looking at last night's football game, maybe no surprise, but Carson Wentz, if you didn't think he was the real deal or you weren't familiar with the school he came from, I'll give you that one. But boy, oh boy, he put on a show last night. And we go to the Talk of Fame.
Clarke Judge.
And go to our good friend Clarke Judge this morning. How you doing, buddy?
Not real good, guys.
Not good.
Yankees are out of the World Series. Hats are in the jar. Dartmouth College lost its first game last week to unbeaten Columbia. It's a mess here.
Boy, I got to tell you, and the amount of Dartmouth fans that I run into on a daily basis, I feel your pain, Clarke. I feel your pain. And
yeah, there are legions of us everywhere. Yeah, in fact, I can count 2 or 3 in this neighborhood. Yeah, legions of them.
Now, and am I also to understand that Hank Steinbrenner is lukewarm on bringing back Girardi and Cashman as a team? Is this true?
No, I don't think so. I mean, listen, I lived in New York for a long time and in and around that place, and I get the Post every day, which I think is a great sports section, and I know guys who cover that team, and their feeling is that he wants both back, especially Cashman. But with Girardi, it's really more Girardi's decision. It seems as if Girardi may have just tired of New York. I mean, he may just say, "I've had enough of guys like me who 2 weeks ago said, I want him fired." Now I'm saying he's a genius. No, I think it's Girardi's decision. I think Cashman will be back. But Girardi may just say, listen, I'm tired of the BS, the second guessing. It's a tough town to win in. But the fact of the matter is, it is a tough town to win in, but you're going to have to do it. Otherwise, you move on. And Joe Torre was terrific there. Girardi's had his ups and downs. I'm not a big fan. I never have been. But, you look at his tenure, 10 years there, and he's won one World Series. And honestly, I know in some places you go, that's great. I mean, they're in the playoffs some. It used to be a lot. But they haven't had a losing season in his tenure. That's great, except the standard there is much higher. And when I covered the 49ers, it's the same thing. The standard was Super Bowl or else, and the standard here is like World Series, and they've only been to one. They won in 2009. So I still think, he would like to have him back. But again, it's probably up to Girardi, and if he leaves, he'll get hired in a heartbeat by somebody else.
Yeah, that's what Dave said earlier on. He said, that guy's going to write his own ticket. For someone that has his current resume, I don't see why he wouldn't. But look, I want to move on to last night's, because I can't believe we're talking about Thursday night games and Monday night football games that are good. Mm-hmm. Because
that's right. Yeah.
We got through a lot of that's not. And I look at Carson Wentz, and the one thing that strikes me, and he is a football player, and people say, yeah, well, of course he's a football player, but he plays like a football player. And the only thing that concerns me about that is guys who are that ultra competitive at that position. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they don't last a long time, and even though he got out of that one situation where he runs for 17 yards, it still, I don't know, was a hook slide at the end. Sometimes because he's not afraid of contact. I just wonder, is there ever a concern with a guy who plays like that you may not get all you could in terms of longevity because of how he plays?
Oh, sure, absolutely. I mean, that's why we have pocket passers. They developed the pocket for a reason. And it wasn't to take away the running game of an RG3 or a Cam Newton or a Michael Vick. It wasn't to do that. It's to protect the quarterback. You protect him with offensive linemen and running backs and tight ends as blockers. That's why you do it, to protect this guy. Once you get outside the pocket, anything goes. And we saw it with RG3. You're starting to see it with Cam Newton. He was built like a linebacker, and people said, God, he can run over people. Well, eventually those hits take their toll. They're taking their toll on him. I covered Steve Young, who was one of the greatest running backs as a quarterback that I've ever seen. He's also a terrific quarterback. But late in his career, the coaching staff, Steve Mariucci, came in there and said, listen, you got to run out of bounds. You can't do this anymore. And he suffered concussions, and several of them that caused him to leave the game. So I agree with you. With Carson Wentz, you look at who was the leading rusher last night for Philadelphia. It was Carson Wentz. Mm-hmm. And you can't continue to do that without eventually suffering some kind of repercussion. And sometimes it's an injury will set you back a game or two. Sometimes it's a season-ending injury, and sometimes, as in the case of RG3, it's an injury which is a career-threatening or career-ending injury. And that's why you try to get these guys to stay in the pocket. Listen, Philadelphia's had experience with this before. When Donovan McNabb first came up, he was a running back as well as a quarterback. But Andy Reid told him, you've got to stay in the pocket to prolong your career. And eventually he did. He became a very good pocket pass, and we know what happened there. They went to 4 conference championship games in 4 years, 5 in 8 years. They went to a Super Bowl. He was very successful there, and Carson Wentz is going to have to learn that too, but I sure hope he doesn't learn it the hard way.
We're in conversation with Clarke Judge from the Talk of Fame Network here on Raw Mike Richards. Clarke, are you buying the Eagles right now as a 6-1 team that will compete in the playoffs and maybe win a division or do something, or is it still too early and you're not quite sure about whether or not the 6-1 record is real?
No, I'm buying them because I have no choice, really. I mean, who else is 6-1? Nobody. Nobody's. They're the only team that's lost one game. They're at the top of the heap. And you look at their schedule, guys, and it's not that difficult. Well, look at the schedule. It's really not that difficult. And I think they still have the majority of their games at home. So it all is tilting in the right direction for them. Now, I mean, you mentioned Carson Wentz. What happens if he were to get hurt? I mean, that changes things. And that's why, yeah, I mean, I'm buying him right now, but it's too early to make predictions about anyone just because of injuries. Injuries determine so much in this game. And I remember years ago, a PR director saying to me, listen, it's not necessarily the best teams that get to the Super Bowls. It's sometimes the healthiest. And I think he's absolutely right. We've seen that some in the past. And I look at Philadelphia, and they've got the ammunition, certainly on offense. I don't know defensively, or they're the team that you want to buy, as the best in the NFC, except I'd look at the NFC and say, who else are you going to give me? I can't give you the second best team out there. Who is it? Is it Seattle? Is it the Rams? It's not Atlanta. Yeah. Carolina? No. I mean, where's the second best team in the NFC? It's wide open, but we've got a long, long way to go. So let's let this thing play out.
Let's take a look at that Sunday night game, kind of reflecting back on it. There didn't seem to be any pushback from Atlanta. I know a lot of people thought, revenge game or some sort of effort that was a little more, but it almost seemed like they continued off where they left that Super Bowl late in the game and scoring 7 points, and that those 7 points were scored late in the game. Is there a chance this team, and it's kind of hard to believe that I'm saying this, but is there a chance this team does not even qualify for the postseason, especially how they're playing right now in some of these bigger games?
Oh, absolutely. And I think you might have said that even before the season began, knowing what you did about last year and how good they were last year, but also knowing history. I was a history major at Dartmouth. That's what I loved about it. I loved history, and one of the reasons I love about it is you learn from the past, and if there are mistakes that are made, you correct them. And one thing we've learned from the past in the NFL is Super Bowl losers tend to have Super Bowl hangovers. There's a Super Bowl curse with them. They struggle to get back to the playoffs, and when they do, they generally go away pretty quickly. And if you look at the recent history, it's bad. I mean, it's really bad with Super Bowl losers. And there was a time during, I think, the mid-2000s, like 8, 9, 10, right in there, where the Super Bowl losers weren't even getting back to the playoffs. And I looked at Atlanta, I said, I don't think they're going to win this division. I don't know who is, but my pick at that point, and this was probably June and July, I said, look at Tampa Bay. They're loading up. I look at Tampa Bay now. They can't play defense. They got 7 sacks. Last in the league in sacks. They can't play defense. And I think the quarterback's okay. I'm not a big fan of his. He makes plays, but he makes big mistakes too. I look at Tampa, and you guys saw him in Buffalo last weekend. They're not very good. Carolina's not very good. Who is good in that division? New Orleans? I'm not buying New Orleans either. So I just don't I've never been a big fan of the Super Bowl loser just because I do believe in history, and I do think there's something there. And they spend all the offseason, answering questions from people like me, and we talked to Dan Quinn and we talked to Matt Ryan on our Talk of Fame Sports Network and asked them about it, and they would say, oh yeah, we recognize it, but we're going to address it. We're going to work very hard to overcome it. We're going to be a great team. Well, they are working very hard, but they're not overcoming it, and you saw that on Sunday. That looked like a flat team. That the finger pointing is going to begin, and probably already has begun, at Steve Sarkisian, the offensive coordinator. They just don't seem to be playing with any urgency. There's no imagination on offense. It just looks like a different team, and Matt Ryan looks like a different quarterback. Someone's going to win that division, but I'm going to tell you right now, guys, I don't know who it is. And what I've seen so far, of those 4 teams, there's not one that's a Super Bowl threat.
We're in conversation with Clarke Judge here on rawmike.richards.com. Those of you who are watching right now on YouTube or, of course, on rawmike.richards.com itself, brought to you by DKI Canada. Does Sean McVay get a lot of love around the league? Because, it just seems like if I'm looking at the roster that the Rams have, which was not that dissimilar to the one that Jeff Fisher had, do people make that comparison to, okay, basically the same roster? Is really Sean McVay doing something different than Jeff Fisher did not? What is that argument? What does that hold?
Well, I mean, Sean McVay comes from the opposite side of the ball than Jeff Fisher, and that's where a lot of the credit goes here. He's a completely different set of eyes. He knows how to handle quarterbacks. He's young. He's so young. I covered his grandfather, John McVay.
Right.
I loved dearly. He was involved with the 49ers, did a great job with the 49ers. But Sean's young. He has a completely different approach. He seems to connect with the quarterback, who is the foundation of that team. I mean, you can build that team around him, but you can also build around Todd Gurley. And to me, I've always said I don't think the difference is so much with Goff, and he's playing well, as it is with Gurley. Suddenly you look at Todd Gurley, and he looks like the second coming of Marshall Faulk to me. I mean, he's running, he's catching the ball in the backfield, he's blocking, he's doing everything you want. And for my money, he's the best running back in the game, the most complete. I know there are lots of very, very good ones. The year of the running back, and there are lots of very good ones. I mean, Jacksonville's got a very good young one, Leonard Fournette. You talk about Kareem Hunt in Kansas City. They're good, very good running backs everywhere. But this guy is really making things happen, and he didn't a year ago. And honestly, a year ago, they looked flat. They looked dead. They were a defensive team that tried to play without a quarterback, without a running back, without an offense. But I will say, in the defense of Jeff Fisher, is that they have added some elements, and the elements are all on offense. Andrew Whitworth comes in. They bring in John Sullivan at center. That's a huge deal. You bring in 2 offensive linemen who secure that offensive line. You go out and you get wide receivers, Robert Woods. You get him. You get guys who can stretch the field, Sammy Watkins. I mean, suddenly you've got playmakers where you didn't have them before. That's so much better for a quarterback, and a young quarterback like Jared Goff. He didn't have that a year ago. He didn't have that offensive line a year ago. They stunk. And now they're putting tons of points on the board. So I think it's a combination of both. They've got better players, but they've got a better head coach.
Clarke, in a bit, I do a segment called the Hateful Eight, where I kind of go through a list of teams that kind of blew
Montreal,
it for me.
Carey Price.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That I'm sure that's going to happen too. It probably is.
So I'll tease this segment a little bit by saying the Cincinnati Bengals and the effort in the second half, that was kind of disappointing to me, where I thought, okay, I don't expect the Bengals to go into Pittsburgh and win, all the time, or at least half the time, to tell you the honest truth. But when they played such a decent first half and then completely no-showed in the second half, that was a real truth teller to me in what that season has been for the Bengals so far.
Couldn't agree with you more, because I thought that second half was their chance to make a statement.
Yeah,
they've been playing very well since changing offensive coordinators. In the first half, they're trading touchdowns with Pittsburgh. And in the second half, I go, okay, Pittsburgh's up, but they're getting field goals. And you can come back on them now. They're making it clear we can't close the drive. We can't close these drives. You can beat us if you can score. And they couldn't. And they had 1 first down in the second half, 19 total yards, 4 sacks. I mean, how does that happen? Pittsburgh played very good defense. There's no question about that. And Pittsburgh now is, I think I mentioned to you guys last week, the AFC, which, seems to be sort of a random crapshoot right now, guaranteed in the end, the old standby is going to be there. Kansas City, Pittsburgh, New England, they're going to be there. AFC South doesn't make any difference who comes out of there. Doesn't matter. They're not going to do anything. But these guys are. And Pittsburgh right now is getting on a roll, and they played very well in the second half. But I do think Cincinnati contributed to it. There was no sense of urgency. They didn't play very well. The play calling wasn't sharp. They couldn't find the end zone with a Sherpa, for God's sake. So GPS, I mean, they really struggled there, and I think you nailed it, because I thought that was their opportunity to take care of Pittsburgh. And I did think they could win there. I really did. I mean, Roethlisberger was 8-5 against them at home, and that wasn't all that good. And I've seen them beat them there. And now this is their chance, because they're beginning to get something here. Dalton didn't have any touchdown passes in the first 2 games. Heck, they hadn't even scored a touchdown in the first 2 games. He had 7 in the next 3, and you go, whoa, here they come, 2 touchdowns in the first half. This is going to be a shootout in the second. And they just went away. And I was disappointed. I thought they did make a statement. The statement was, we're number 3 and we love it. Or maybe Baltimore's number 3, but we're not playing for the championship in this division.
Do we have any prognosis at all, Clarke, on Teddy Bridgewater? Are we not seeing him this year? Is it what's
I don't think so. No? I don't think so. I mean, I in terms of I'm not inside that building. I don't know, but I've talked to Rick Spielman over the past year and talked to him about him, and he's just such a long way away. I mean, until now he hadn't practiced since August 2016. He hadn't practiced, so he's been sidelined for over a year. Hasn't been in the game, and I think if you're Minnesota, don't look at Teddy Bridgewater as a salvation. Look at your defense as a salvation. Can defenses win championships? Yeah, they can. The 2000 Ravens did it to a degree. That the 2002 Bucks did it, but I'd take Brad Johnson over anything that Minnesota's got right now. And that's not a knock at Case Keenum. I mean, Brad Johnson's a pretty good quarterback, but I'm not sure he can go very far with Case Keenum. But you can. He's not turning the ball over. Not doing that right now, and you can win with that defense. That said, I still don't think they're the team to beat in that division. I think Detroit is. Detroit's got a very difficult game this weekend. I mean, they're at home, and I think they're at home against Pittsburgh, guys.
Yes.
And that, to me, is going to be a telltale game.
Well, I don't want to end on a sad note, but are we going to talk about the Montreal Canadiens? I mean,
No, absolutely not. No, unless there's something. I mean, I'm turning Cam Newton on you. I'm not even showing up for the interview.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. But nicely done. Or is this a Marshawn Lynch too? I mean, is that when you just don't show?
Yeah. I'm going to go and sit in the stands and watch the second half of the season there. I mean, it's funny. We get center ice, and my wife said, okay, should I sign you up for center ice? I said, I think so. Let me see how this thing plays out. And I did see a couple games and went, God almighty, what are we looking at? I mean, don't you have to play with a back line? I mean, these guys, boy, they look terrible. But I mean, am I off the bandwagon? No, I love that Habs, always will. But boy, it's tough to look at. And yet, as I said to you last time, you know what? It didn't work with the Jackrabbit start last year. So a couple years before, that didn't work. No, we're going to go with the tortoise start now and see if we can get to the finish line just by taking our time and waiting everybody else out, because the other hasn't seemed to work. But right now, boys, these guys aren't real good.
No. And I was going to hear some.
Your team is, by the way. Toronto. Boy, they're fun to watch.
I'm trying to play some traditional French Canadian music too, and that didn't work either. That's just horrible.
That's okay.
That honestly don't.
Like, go Habs, go, go away, go away.
Here's their music. Hey, Clarke, you take care. Thanks so much for joining us again this morning. It's always a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
That is Clarke Judge joining us. Talk of Fame Network.
He is fantastic. He's a great NFL insider, and we're happy to have him most Tuesdays recapping the week that was. And, Clarke Judge, Talk of Fame Network. Definitely check it out.
I'm always trying to – I mean, I don't know. Like, because of CRTC, which is such junk, it's just a horrible organization that is disconnected and doesn't get it. On satellite radio, there's like 6 channels that they're allowed to have. It takes a huge amount of bandwidth, which is why we have so few talk Canadian satellite channels on Sirius XM, is because it's taken by the CRTC where they have all this music. And you can hear music, let's see, ditties like this.
Yep.
Nobody likes this.
No.
Even Louis Riel would go,
Qu'est-ce que tu fais?
You can hang me now, so I don't have to listen to more of that merde. That's just, I mean, and this is one of the happier. The song almost makes sense. So I tried to play it for that was not going to make Canadian fans
that's okay.
Happy. So we're going to do the Hateful Eight today. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, but before we get to that, I do want to show we haven't done any sort of epic fails in a while, and especially when it comes to a guy who thinks he's tough. This is I don't know where this is from, but this is awesome. This is apparently a guy. It looks like a gas station or something. I don't know what part of the world this is. I honestly don't. And I think what has happened is Buddy tried to fight a guy at the gas station and immediately gets put down. But do you have one of those friends who, as he's walking away, you're going, oh, God, he's going to try it again. He's going to try a comeback. He's going to try to come back and after being embarrassed with some stupid move. Do you have a friend like that?
Not a close friend, but
you know guys.
An old high school guy. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. I think everybody has one of these idiots.
Okay. Here's Bad Comeback by Stupid Buddy. He's walking away. He's walking away. Here comes the comeback. Oh. And watch this finish move. Oh. Oh, no. Oh, that did not go well. That was not the comeback he was looking for. And guys are laughing. See, that's the worst part. During the comeback, laughter. That's when you know it hasn't gone well. So let's just see that. Okay, there's a couple of sounds in here. I'm sorry. It's the throw. Okay, when he throws him down, the sound of his spine on the concrete. Let's just hear that sound once again. Oh, there's that. But the finishing move here, Dave. Oh,
that's a great finisher too.
Yeah.
You get a 5 count, never mind a 3 count.
Oh, there it is, right there. Wow. So Russell, what was it, like a family reunion or something? Was that your brother coming back? Okay, let's not do that. Not with his awesome brother over in Sweden. Have you heard from him? Does he never call? Is he like?
No, we talk every now and then. He every Saturday stays up to watch the Leafs games.
Wow.
Of course he does.
Other ones just gets the recaps, but Saturday night stays up. Games start at 1 a.m. over there.
Holy smokes.
His fiance just must be, oh my God, what a dream for her.
Is it fiance or girlfriend?
Just girlfriend.
Okay.
Yeah, and trust me, maybe it's not going to be fiance.
I was gonna say when you're hanging out in Sweden.
Yeah. If she was doing the Hateful Eight, maybe your brother's going to be on it. So, as we know, on Tuesdays,
here we go.
This is what we do.
And now it's time for Dave Bastel's Hateful 8.
That is very hateful and very Halloweenish, too, considering we're about a week away from it. And speaking of, we'll have a Hateful 8 on Halloween. But let's get to this one first. And we're not a better spot to start off than with the Carolina Panthers and that MVP Cam Newton, who managed to produce 3 whole points against the Bears. Brutal. Well done, Cam.
Brutal.
You MVP. Cam Newton only works perfectly if every single star is aligned, and that guy isn't going to win anything anytime soon. Speaking of zeros, big shout out to the Colts at home, the Broncos in LA, and especially the Cardinals, who not only prove that they're crap in North America, but they're also crap in London, England. Thanks for coming out, and now you don't have your quarterback either. I guess there was zero payback for the Falcons this weekend. Not only they become the biggest embarrassment in Super Bowl history, they follow it up by getting punched in the face once again. It's almost like that comeback guy we saw there in that video before where you thought you had it, you lost, and then you came back and you got beat up some more. That is the Atlanta Falcons in a little short 20-second clip. Shout out to the Titans and Browns. Thanks for wasting my Sunday afternoon, you field goal teams, you. Way to go. Giants managed to hold touchdown at home to the Seahawks. Get ready for that lottery pick. Then the Bengals, quite the fight in the second half. 19 total yards of offense, 0 points. It's not like your team is competing for a division or anything. Oh, yeah, that's right. You guys were. No pulse there. And speaking of no pulse, nice to see that selling your soul to the devil in Adrian Peterson has really benefited you. After a monster game last week, you follow it up with 21 yards on 11 carries. Back to normal, Adrian Peterson. And I don't need to get into what you really are off the field because it rhymes with rap. And that's the Hateful Eight.
There you go. Hateful, let's hear. See if I can get the voice. Here we go.
Dave Bastles. Hateful Eight.
I think that was done by a young Kirk Douglas. I think who actually
that's massive hate right there.
who voiced that. That's pretty good.
I think it's fantastic.
It reminds me, too, because we had the flying kick. It was, what, 3 weeks ago when see, here's the weird thing about the fight game. So people didn't like when Pacquiao fights Mayweather. They didn't like that one because it was kind of past his prime.
It was.
And then people thought it was gimmicky that be Mayweather fighting Conor McGregor. They didn't like that. And so who else do you think could throw their hats into the ring of a fight that people are going, what, are you kidding me? So I don't know how, but it did, I guess, 3 weeks ago when George Foreman.
Yep.
George Foreman. I can only imagine the tremendous workout regimen he's been going through. Who wanted to fight Steven Seagal?
Yeah. He threw out a social media challenge to Steven Seagal that he would fight him in any discipline that Seagal wants to do it, but George would do the boxing. So George would be sitting there with his boxing gloves, and Steven Seagal could pick whatever discipline he wanted to fight.
He'll gouge his eyes out, put a fork in the top of his head, and break his arm.
That's right.
I mean,
if I'm George Foreman, I'm not making that challenge.
No, you're not making that challenge.
I'm just sorry.
So sit back in that rocking chair.
If I'm anybody, I'm not making that challenge to Steven Seagal. All you have to do is watch one of the 50 movies out there.
Yeah. He makes a movie every week. It's amazing. And it was only a couple of years ago when we were on TSN 1050 when they had ratings.
Yep.
That remember those weird guys that wanted to castrate Justin Bieber? Not that I don't understand it. Not that I'm thinking, now that's crazy. No, it's not that crazy. But Steven Seagal, who, as you know, very defensive, didn't like that talk.
Nope.
And so he called us, and I thought, now that we're talking about fights, this was a classic Steven Seagal moment.
Seagal.
Oh, Steven Seagal, hi.
I understand. Someone wants to castrate Justin Bieber.
Yeah, that's the story.
You know, you got to think about what's going on there.
Yeah, I do. Sure, I do.
Castrating the young boy like that.
Yeah, it's upsetting.
Because if it was me,
if it was you,
and they come up to me,
right,
I'd give him one of these.
What? That sounds good.
That's what I do. Can I give him one of these?
What? Wow.
Keep your hands up my wiener.
What?
You understand me, boy?
What?
You want to touch my wiener?
Wow. That's.
Could you?
What?
Please play Popcorn by Hot Butter. Thanks, y'all.
Yeah.
Well, there it was. All those not that long ago.
Well, long enough, I guess.
Yeah. He makes a movie literally every 2 weeks in Eastern Europe somewhere,
and they're all good too.
The last one I think I saw, because he can play like a Russian guy.
Sure.
I think, did he play a Greek guy? Has he played a Greek guy?
I bet you he could.
Yeah.
I think that guy could probably play every single Eastern Bloc country there is.
The one I thought that it might have gone just too far when he went to, I think it was outer space, to fight, like to kung fu vampire Martians.
Oh.
At that point, I'm saying,
I did not see that one.
Steven, could I speak to you outside for a second? Yeah. Like, it was just, and he wore and all he did was walk around in this huge coat. He looked like Ann Wilson from Heart. And I just thought, maybe it's over.
Same size, too, right?
And yet, Dave, if one comes on, you and I are watching.
Yeah, we're watching
that movie.
When you do the jogging on the TV and a Steven Seagal movie comes
out for
on,
something.
Yeah.
Out of control, out for justice, above the law.
You know what? It looks like I'm out of time because I'm watching this movie.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it's going to be.
The broken arm stuff is just excellent.
The acting is second to none.
No, yeah. Where are the Oscars? I mean, this is when I know people are upset about the racial instance.
Yep.
We should be like, My Hollywood includes Steven Seagal.
Yep.
Is where we should be going.
And at one time, My Hollywood also included Jean-Claude Van Damme. Sorry. I have watched Universal Soldier probably about 7 times in the last 2 years.
Well, sudden death, when it's the the Pittsburgh Penguins in Game 7, and no one notices that a non-hockey player goes in goal. Like no one, the goalie, all of a sudden he's a goalie.
Yeah.
And at one point, the bad guy, Powers Booth, right, who just died recently, and he's fighting him because he's the terrorist. And the FBI guys call up, and Jean-Claude Van Damme answers the phone. And the FBI goes, "How's it going? How's it going down there?" He goes, "Lousy." You don't get that everywhere.
No,
Never heard Clark Gable say that.
No.
Nope.
Nope.
Nope. Before we leave, a couple of other. Now we've got some NBA clips that I wanted to get to before the show goes over. Now, what are we playing? Lonzo Ball? What do I have here? There was one that I really wanted to show that was pretty good. What do we have left?
We can do the Lonzo Ball triple-double.
And what was the other one that I had there?
We got the Philadelphia game.
Okay, let's show Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Because, Dave, the big thing was, and, of course, Hall of Famer Alex, who loves everything Philadelphia, has been waiting a very long time, like a lot of 76er fans, to actually see some of these guys play for the first time together at once. These massive NCAA stars that never have actually been on the court at the same time. What did it look like in their minds? What should the Philadelphia 76ers look like when you do the sports math if it all comes together? Well, I got news for you. It kind of probably looks like this, and this is property of the National Basketball Association. Imagine this.
Joel Embiid is, in fact, back, and just in time, and Simmons continues to improve, seemingly with each and every game.
Embiid inside. Did you see the agility?
Simmons behind the back, Embiid for 3. Got it! Bayless setting up Embiid, who rolls in and throws it down with a left hand. Drummond went for the block, and Joel said, "Hey, I'm here." Here's Simmons. Says he go all 94. Does the curly kneel thing. Now he unloads the teammate. It is Saric. Embiid as Drummond gambled, and Johnson tried to cover up. Good luck. Nothing stopping Joel Embiid. Simmons working over everybody, not to be denied. Simmons drawing Drummond on the switch. Embiid, there's the lob for him. Joel got it. Is it Simmons' 10th assist? If it is, it's a triple-double on that one, as Embiid will go to the line looking for one more. Yes, the triple-double for one Ben Simmons.
There it was, Ben Simmons and Embiid. That's what you've been fantasizing if you're a 76ers fan, Dave.
Yep.
I hope we see it, because I am sick and tired of seeing teams, particularly 76ers, be so pathetic that it's not even engaging. I don't want to turn on the television. If you want to watch the Raptor game or whoever your favorite team is, and you're like, well, this is going to be a waste of time, or it's going to be the novelty of them actually winning a game. To me, not engaging, not interesting.
No, exactly. And I don't know. I look back at a 76ers team in the 80s that was really competitive year after year and even challenged at times in the Eastern Conference. And we really haven't seen, they've been the laughing stock of that city that has, a pretty good baseball team at times.
You got to go back to Iverson.
Yeah, to actually see something, right? So it's nice to see. And it's funny. I like the uniforms. I like the 76er uniforms.
Yeah.
I like the blue.
Yeah.
But yeah, I go back with them to the Charles Barkley years before he was with the Phoenix Suns. And
well, I go back to Dr. J. I lived on the West Coast. Of course, I lived in Eugene, Oregon, which meant the Portland Trailblazers were my favorite team. Well, that whole Dr. J versus Bill Walton, that's where I go back to, and those were fantastic series. But I would think talent for talent, if all of those guys show up at the same time, it's going to be very interesting to see how good these guys can be. Because remember, a lot of people aren't necessarily putting them in the top 5 because it's such a huge jump. But what if they did? What if they did? I'm not saying they're going to be the Timberwolves, which, by the way, do you realize that they're calling our guy Maple Jordan Wiggins?
I did not know that.
Maple Jordan.
Maple Jordan. That's
Do you like it or do you hate it?
I don't know. I don't think anybody should.
Russell,
be
you're
Jordan.
getting, so let's call up. We've had Andrew Wiggins on.
Yeah.
Drop the Maple Jordan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a necessity. We could think of something better than that.
You know what? I'm usually not a nickname guy, so
Maple Beaver.
Sounds good enough to eat, Dave.
Okay.
I know. It was there. It's not my fault.
Russell just threw something at me. Happy birthday to Drake. His birthday's today, too.
Oh, that's right. It is. And all the songs that I play all the time.
Oh, man. If I had a nickel every single time you played a Drake song, I'd have 0 nickels.
You know that one that, they're all good.
Yeah.
I bore you with with those
melodies.
Snapping tunes. In fact, wasn't that the title of his last album? I think it was. I'd like to thank Clarke Judge from the
Talk of Fame
Talk
Network.
of Fame.
Yep.
Talk of Fame. Always does a great job. He's very sad about the Montreal Canadiens and the Yankees. You never know, but always does a great job on the NFL. Tomorrow, who do we have? Someone.
We have the creative director from Blood in the Snow, a horror film series coming to Toronto.
Oh, going to be good. Join us tomorrow on RawMikeRichards.com.